Hi everybody and welcome to this SherWeb webinar. Thanks for coming out and attending. Subject today is 3 ways not to fail your cloud server migration, which personally I feel is a very important subject, and I'll try to share why. Today on this webinar, I'm Guillaume. I'm a Director of Product Management for everything to do with infrastructure as a service and platform as a service for SherWeb, which means the Performance Cloud is my baby. With me, I have Alan Carvalho, who's a development specialist for the partner network at SherWeb, which a few of you might know as your account rep. Hi, Alan.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to join Guillaume on this webinar. Thanks for having me.
So today's webinar is scheduled to run for half an hour. We'll probably run a little bit long. There's a lot of content. If you have any questions, please ask them in the Q&A box that is provided with this webinar. We'll either address them as we go or at the end. If for some reason we have too many questions, we'll address them one by email after the presentation. If for some reason you have to leave during the presentation, a link to the recorded webinar will be sent to your email either today or either tomorrow or Thursday. So today's agenda, we'll go a little bit into who is SherWeb, but as SherWeb partners, you're probably well aware of that. Then we'll talk about cloud server migration and its different steps. Then I will take a bit of time to present the Performance Cloud, the infrastructure as a service product of SherWeb. I'll tell you a little bit about how it is a different infrastructure as a service than most other providers. And then we'll go to our Q&A. So without further ado, is Alan with who is SherWeb.
So as most of you are partners, you already know our value proposition and who we are in the market. However, this will be a great refresher to just sort of touch base on our capabilities within the market. As most of you know, SherWeb is a born in the cloud company. We started off as a web hoster, and along the years, we've developed as a company, we grew as a company, and we have diversified our product portfolio, which we will go later on down the slides. And today we are one of the top CSPs in North America. Over the last couple of years, we've been recognized for multiple Microsoft awards. One of them, which being we were the finalist in 2010 for Partner of the Year, and we actually won Partner of the Year in 2013. We have a niche. We stick to what we know. And SherWeb is a 100% dedicated hosted solution provider. Right at this moment today, we have roughly around 4,000 partners worldwide, and we service over 25,000 organizations in a 100-country spread. One of our main core values and our mission statements is to be a top-tier one-stop stop for our partners, for our customers, where they can have multiple cloud solutions to streamline their business processes. Here's a quick view of what SherWeb has to offer in terms of our product portfolio. On this particular slide, we've divided them into software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service. The two of our prominent products that include our software as a service platform is our SherWeb branded hosted exchange 2013-2010, which is also white labelable to our partners. And our second core software as a service product is our 2-tier Office 365 suites that we allow our partners to sell through us. Along with that, we have multiple other products. That's hosted SharePoint, Link, compliant archiving, as well along with online backup. Guillaume's baby obviously falls under the infrastructure as a service, our cloud servers, and then recently introduced this year, our new platforms is Cloud Database and SharePoint Private Cloud. So without further ado, I'm going to let Guillaume take the mic, and we're going to go over our main topic, 3 ways of not to fail your cloud server migration.
Thank you very much, Alan. I think it's good to take the opportunity to show our different services to our partners, even existing partners. We've been adding a lot over the last couple of years. The Office 365 edition is very exciting, as well as everything we've been doing in infrastructure as a service and cloud databases and different backup products. All right, on to our main topic, cloud server migration. We've really broken down the process of a cloud server migration into 3 steps. One common pitfall and one good way to fail your cloud server migration is to focus exclusively on the technical aspects. That is very common occurrence, and I plead guilty to that as well, is because as technical-minded people, you start thinking about server requirements, configuration, software specs, and really it is important to have a focus on these steps that I'd say encompass a little bit more when it comes to organization and their challenges. So step 1 is establish your needs and goals as a company. The who, the what, the why. Step 2 is plan your strategy, the how. And step 3, and it is very carefully put as step 3, is choose the right partner program to execute on that. We are completely biased when it comes to choosing the right provider, but it doesn't mean that you should be. Okay, step 1 is establish your needs and goals. A lot of the stuff that is in this PowerPoint was sort of extracted, quote unquote, from one of our white papers, which is called 5 Steps to a Successful Database as a Service Migration. A lot of stuff that is in that white paper is very relatable to any migration, cloud servers included. You can find this document and more in our partner toolbox at sherweb.com/partner/toolbox. So, the first thing, define your business needs, strategy, and goals. And business is in bold there, and it is the main point. The decision to migrate should come from a business objective. Technical requirements are good, but they should really be derived from a business goal, from something that the business wants to accomplish, and then you can have a reflection on what's the best mean to accomplish that, and the solution hopefully will come often to being cloud servers. We've have a fair amount of experience when it comes to migration project for different size client. And one thing always seems to hold true is that it is better if it comes from the top down. So as partner, that is probably how you should approach your client's organization and their project. We've had technical people or staff that was trying to drive a change, tech support or a sysadmin who was saying, hey, we should move all these servers to SherWeb, which I thought was a great idea. But the higher level staff, the managers, the directors, VPs, and owners, they weren't on board, and basically it was always an uphill battle to get that project through. The first thing as a partner that you should do is make sure that you have the business buy-in to your IT project. Even if they're not IT people, they should understand what you're trying to accomplish for the business, which goal it will enable. And that is a key success factor to a migration project. If you have the CTO on board or the owner, often when we're talking SMBs, the owner looms very large over the business. He will be able to drive it down to his team and get the execution in place, get the people's commitment. With that in mind, once you know what you're trying to accomplish, you should attach metrics to your project. It is very important to have goals and quantifiable goals so that you can state 2 things that may seem a bit obvious, but that the project is actually finished and that it was a success. If you don't have specific metrics, it often becomes a case of, oh, there's still this left to be done, or I'm not happy with the results. Well, if you don't have something to go back and say, here's what we were trying to accomplish, here's what we said as a metric, it's hard to argue with somebody that has a bit of a negative attitude. If you have clear metrics, you can say, hey, the objective was to have 90% of the client software move to the cloud and to have less, let's say, than 4 hours of downtime while doing it. That's something that you can measure. That's something you can go back to and say, hey, this project was a huge success. Let's say 98% of software was migrated and we only had an hour and a half of downtime. From those success, you can drive future project with a positive attitude within the company, and people will look in a positive way to the next project to keep things moving towards a more modern infrastructure. Once you have proper metrics that you can measure, that you can track, and the means to track it, which is sometimes a challenge, you need to assess your current infrastructure and make a list. Obviously, in your case, as partner, you need to assess your client's infrastructure and document. It's very important to document the infrastructure. Two reasons for the focus on documenting. One, it will allow you to share it with your provider that you select and make it a clear picture. But also, two, it will really enable to not, use the expression, but not drop any balls. So if you know all the pieces, if the pieces are well documented and how they interact with each other, you can make sure that your migration process sort of includes everything and takes care of any exception. You won't be left with, oh, the server, like this software doesn't work now that we've moved because X, Y, Z that we didn't see coming. So some of the different aspects that you make sure that you document: applications, workload, network configuration. Any customization is an important factor. Somebody can have, let's say, for example, very popular software, Microsoft SQL. Do they have it installed in the standard way, next, finish? Or do they have custom software, custom settings, a different way to run their storage? All those things are very important to document before you start. Also, those things will allow you to pick a provider, because if any of those things are very specific things, you will need a provider that has those capabilities to answer that need. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, anytime, don't hesitate. But on to step two. Step two, plan your strategy. So define your migration needs. So now you have a good idea what you're trying to accomplish. You have a good idea of the current situation of your client. You need to make a decision on what kind of migration you want to do. One of the most pressing and common choice is to see if you're actually going to migrate the servers of your client, or if you're only going to migrate the data and software. If you're going to migrate servers, basically what we will do together is create an image, often called a VHD, virtual hard drive, or VHDX if you're a bit more advanced in the technology, and we'll move that to SherWeb Performance Cloud, and then we will restore that drive as a full-on server. The advantage of that is, in theory, or in most cases, you will get exactly your server that you had before, but in Performance Cloud, already with all your applications installed and your data on it, everything running. The disadvantage is that it usually requires a pretty significant maintenance on the client's side. Sorry, my computer just went to sleep, which is not great. So it requires a significant maintenance on their end, because they'll need to stop every system, create that virtual image, send it over to us, and then we restore it, and then we hand it back over. We've done it for clients where they were what we call 9-to-5 businesses. We took a weekend. On the Friday, we created all the image of their software and everything, of their servers, send them over the wire to us, restored them on Saturday. They spent Sunday making sure everything was okay, and Monday morning, their users were on this new system, on those new servers. None the wiser, really, because it was a transparent thing. That is not always possible. If you have very large infrastructure, that can be a problem as well, if you have a lot of storage to transfer. One thing of note, in all cases, what the service provider will often do is they'll accept shuttle, which means you put everything on a hard drive, ship the hard drive or hard drives to us, and we restore from there. It really is an easy case of evaluation to check what kind of the amount of storage that the client uses and what kind of internet connection they have. And between those two things, you'll know if you're faster or more practical to send it over the wire, which is fine, or you're better off shipping drives. Okay, so the other option, if you're not going to migrate full servers, is what we call a data-only migration, which is a little bit misleading. It's a software and data migration. What we will do in that instance, and I would say that's the most popular form of migration that we do with our clients and partners, is that we will set up completely new servers in the Performance Cloud, and then we will install the required software for the client. You configure it with the partner and everything, and then all we will move is the data over. What that allows us to do most times, depending on what kind of workload they have, is we will do a first snapshot and migrate it while the client system are still running, not a big maintenance window. And then when everything is set, when they've tested everything on the new servers and everything is green and good to go, we'll do a short maintenance window where we will do a last synchronization of the data that changed between the first migration, the first synchronization, and this time now that we're going live. This will usually shorten the window to do the migration by a factor of a lot. We've done migration where really all it took was 10-15 minutes. There's a lot of factors involved. One of the things, that's why you need to plan your strategy. You need to look at what kind of software you'll be running and everything. The other considerations, forklift migration versus stage migration. What we mean, and this relates also to the server migration versus data software migration. Forklift migration means you need to move a whole bunch of servers together because the system needs to move all at once. This often relates to the server migration. If you need a bunch of servers, database, AD, app server, web server to all move together for the system to keep working, that's a forklift migration where we do everything at once. Stage migration means you can move part of it. This is going to be a mix and match. If your client has a fairly large environment, meaning that let's say they have a production environment and then a dev environment. Well, we can do the dev environment first because it's usually a lot less sensitive to disruption and everything. Do some testing on that and everything. And then in a second run, we can do the production environment. Assess and get to know the tools that could help you. So there are a lot more tools that can be used to do migration, but those are 4 that we use and that are fairly common. Disk to VHD is a very practical tool. I would say it is one of the tools that allows us to migrate anything. What that means is disk to VHD is a software that you can run on any server, physical, virtual, doesn't matter. It will create an image of that server that you can then send to us. It's often what we use in full server migrations. It is often as well what we use when we're migrating people from other cloud platforms. So for example, you have a server on Amazon, you want to migrate it to SherWeb Performance Cloud because you've seen the light. But Amazon will not give us access to the hypervisor or to whatever is underneath your virtual machine. All we have access to is your virtual machine itself. That doesn't prevent us from doing a migration. Basically, what we do is we'll do a disk to VHD on your virtual machine, send that over to SherWeb, prep that image, and then put it in the Performance Cloud. Double Take is a similar software. Well, similar. Used in a similar way. Disk to VHD is free. Double Take is absolutely not free. It is a very expensive piece of software. It is also a very good piece of software. So what allows us is you install an agent on the source machine, you install an agent on the destination machine, and it will keep them up to date together. And so the day that you're ready to do your migration, you just switch over and it works. Very good software, much more expensive. rsync is something that we use when we do not stage migration, but data and software migration. We will use it to copy all the data the first time, but where rsync does a little bit of its magic is then it could, when we do the final synchronization, it will copy only the data that has changed between the source and the destination, allowing us for that very brief window that I mentioned. rsync is a Linux software, so that mostly applies to Linux migration. One thing of note, we really cover it. We have a lot of Microsoft product. Sometimes people make the mistake of assuming that we only do Windows cloud servers. We do Linux as well, and we do it very well, including the full migration service, no problem at all. Actually, I have to say, I hope Microsoft's not listening, Linux migration are usually much easier, much more practical. Veeam. Veeam is an interesting one. Let's spend a minute on that. Veeam is a backup software that is built for a virtual machine. If your client has a virtualized infrastructure on premise, be it Hyper-V or VMware, Veeam is a very interesting option to do the migration, and here's why. We are a Veeam partner, and you can use us as a destination for your offsite backups for Veeam. Interesting product. I won't spend any time on it today, but if you want to talk to your rep about that, I encourage you to do so. The reason I mention it right now is that you can install Veeam on-premise for your client that has virtualized infrastructure, and between you and I and this webinar, you can use the trial version of Veeam to do that, which means you don't have to spend any money on doing this. Veeam may not be a big fan of this method, but we like it a lot. We've been using it a lot. So you install Veeam on premise. You use SherWeb as the destination for your Veeam backups. And what we'll do is we'll take those machines, and basically they'll be kept up to date as frequently as you want according to your Veeam configuration. When you're ready to do your flip over, we simply put your client, you put your client in a maintenance window, and we take the Veeam image that you already sent to us and you've been keeping up to date using Veeam software, and we turn them into active Performance Cloud servers. That is a very, very practical way, very short maintenance window, very easy for us to take that machine and put it into Performance Cloud. It is one of our preferred migration method. The only caveat is it needs somebody who's on premise and has virtualization already, which means can't use it with everybody. So those are 4 of the tools that we often use as we do migrations. There are more, obviously, but it's good to consider your tools and understand what's out there to help you. If you have a good vendor, for example, SherWeb is your partner, you can talk to them and they'll help you figure out which tool would be best for your job. The other thing about planning your strategy is the technical findings checklist. Basically, that should be provided by your service provider. And it should include all the information that they need to make sure that the migration goes smoothly. So every existing server, all the configurations, all the software that they use, any specific configuration they need to have. Basically, you will take the findings that you documented in step 1 and put them in that technical findings checklist. SherWeb is a pretty good example that we use. We'll be happy to share it with you if you want to use it with your client. It's a good way to work with them. You can sit down and document everything. Once you have that and you provide it to your service provider, that makes for a much, much smoother experience. It avoids a lot of the pitfalls of migration. Step 3, and one that we feel is a pretty important one. Choose the right service provider. Again, this comes from one of our white papers called Top 10 Tips to Find a Killer Cloud Provider. A series of advice that you can use when you're picking your cloud provider. As most of you are SherWeb partner, I feel you've already made a fairly good decision, but we're always looking to sort of help you pitch us to your client. Here's a couple of those tips that I feel are particularly important. Find a transparent provider is a good one. You want to make sure that you know what your provider is using, what kind of technology, what kind of infrastructure, what kind of architecture they have for that infrastructure. I'll give you an example. If you ask one of the big name infrastructure as a service like, let's say, Amazon, and you ask them how their system works, the answer that you'll get is, don't worry about it, it works. Which is fine for some people, but I feel as a technical person, I should be able to know how it works, how the redundancy is built in, what kind of component they're using, what kind of brand even they're using. So some providers like SherWeb will be completely transparent. If you look in previous webinars or we have documentation, we have white papers where we'll show you every component of the Performance Cloud. We'll show you how it's built, how the architecture is put together. This is something that you should have so that you're confident that your provider is doing their job correctly. It also helps you to present to your client and put their mind at ease. 2, remain in control of your services is also a very good one. There are a lot of, I would call them smaller providers who will say, oh, we're white glove service, very hands-on and everything. The translation of that is we don't have a control panel. You can't do anything yourself. You always have to refer to us to do anything. Not a good situation to be in, I think, for most partners. I think partners have the knowledge and have the responsibility of being able to intervene directly on their client's infrastructure. SherWeb gives you a full-on control panel, both for more accounting reasons and for the technical aspects. So you can go into the portal, you can create VMs, change storage, change network configurations, all those things, monitor performance as well. All those things are directly in your hand. Performance is a high-ranked benefit is a good one. Obviously, with the performance right in the product name, it's something that we feel is very important. For partners, where it directly applies what I like to call value. Price is one thing for infrastructure, but value is really what the key component. When I'm talking about value, what I'm saying is that to know what you'll pay for a client's infrastructure, which means to know what kind of profit margins you'll have, you need to know how much of that infrastructure you'll need to run. A server or a vCPU is not a vCPU is not a vCPU. Our performance cloud servers are, depending on the test, they're between 50% to about 40 times faster than a comparable spec Amazon server. So the 50% faster is for CPU tests and RAM tests. For storage, if you take the default storage on Amazon, we're up to 40 times faster. That means that, and you can get faster on Amazon, but you have to provision IOPS, you have to get very large drives, which means that you'll pay more. But if you need 100 gigs of storage for a client, small client, with the Performance Cloud, you'll get the performance right away. You'll get great performance. With Amazon, it means you can't buy 100 gig of storage. You have to buy bigger storage, and then you have to provision IOPS. This all adds up to what I like to call value. SherWeb is built to give value to your typical configuration, to your typical setup. 4, look for free technical support. So most providers will give you some way to get technical support. Some of them are just plain incompetent, but I wouldn't say that's the majority of them. A lot of providers also have support contracts and everything. At SherWeb, we're there for you, and that's by default. That's included. And I don't mean just, it says technical support. I would say customer service. Pre-sales, we have architects that could sit down with you, and your client to work on a solution. We've played architect for our partners a number of times where we go on a call with our partner, with a client, and we say, hey, we're with this company. We're not SherWeb. Forget about SherWeb. That's the advantage of that's what I call a full white labeled solution. But also 24/7 support, Christmas, whenever you need support, they're there for you. And fast, effective, certified, et cetera, et cetera. I think you guys know the song there. So that's most of what I had to cover when we're talking about migration. I'm going to spend a few minutes on the Performance Cloud itself. As your existing partner, I hope that you're already aware that we have cloud servers. I think it's still good to sort of point out the key differences and the key aspects of the Performance Cloud. If you have any question, again, don't hesitate. Put them in the Q&A box. We'll be happy to answer them. So what is it? What is the SherWeb Performance Cloud? It is a self-managed infrastructure as a service. That means cloud servers, that means virtual networking, that means self-managed backups, and cloud databases, so our database as a service. By the way, database as a service is a subject I won't cover very much in this conversation, but it is something to consider, especially if you're looking at migration. Actually, this reminds me, I'm going to go back for just 1 second on the data-only migration. If you're migrating to completely new servers that you're putting up, it's a very good time to upgrade. Let's say somebody is using Windows 2003, which I know it's crazy talk. Nobody should be on 2003 anymore. But I know you still have clients that are in 2003. I guarantee it. We also have some clients hidden somewhere in a very secure area that are still on 2003. So if you're setting up new servers at Performance Cloud, it's a good time to set it up as, let's say, 2012 R2, install the software, test it out and everything. And the data they do their migration, voila, they're off 2003, they're on 2012 R2. It's very low risk. It means you've tested it before and everything. Some people are a bit adverse to that. They'll prefer to do one change, so do the migration, not do the upgrade at the same time. But it's something that you can discuss with your solution specialist at SherWeb, see if it fits. Same thing for SQL. If you're moving SQL and you're setting up as completely new, it's a good time to change version. As well, if you're looking at SQL, you're looking to change version, you should consider cloud databases. Very attractive option if you need SQL Enterprise. Very, very cost-effective way for a lot of people to get into SQL Enterprise version. Our cloud has all the advantages of the cloud. Pay-as-you-go, hourly billing. It says daily billing there. It's a bit of a mistake. Self and easy provisioning through elasticity, which means you can change your configurations at a moment's notice. Windows and Linux, I mentioned it. 5.9 SLA, which basically if you make the math, that's 26 seconds a month where we say we could be down. After that, we have to pay you compensation and API access. So any of the things that I've talked about provisioning servers and everything like that, if you want to integrate that into your own portal or anything like that, you can have access to our API to do that. I'm sad to say, but there are a lot of infrastructure providers out there, a lot of people. How do we stand out? How do we stand out from the crowd? Other than the fact that we have Alan, which is a big advantage. Performance. Performance is in the name. Performance is an important aspect for our clients, for our typical partner, typical clients. They have what we call traditional workloads, and those traditional workloads demand reasonable configuration that have high performance. You can go to Amazon and design a completely new software that's going to use 1,000 instances of small VMs, and when 10 fails, you'll bring up 100 more, and it's all fine. But let's be honest, most of your clients don't have those types of application, and what they need is one very solid server on which they can run their line of business application and a very solid server where they can run their SQL. And that means you want to get performance out of those 4 CPUs, 32 gigs of RAM that you put up. And that's what we want to offer you. If you're doubtful of my performance claims, we have a third-party study of our performance compared to Azure and Amazon. I invite you to check it out. It's in the partner toolbox. And it really supports what I've been saying about performance, but also about value. Other aspect where we stand out is our expertise and our expertise and our partners. So, team of certified specialists available for you 24/7, 365 days a year. And when I say that, I mean, you don't go through level 1 or level 2 to get to your support for infrastructure as a service. There's a specialized team right there. They're all sysadmins. They can all take care of most of the problems. And if they need help, we have senior sysadmins that are always available to them. Nobody's going to run you through a checklist of things like a telco. No, you get a real expert, and that expert is supported by a bunch of other experts, and we'll get your problem figured out and fixed. We have 16 years of hosting experience. As Alan mentioned, we started with web hosting and dedicated server hosting. To us, it's basically just coming full circle and getting back into the hosting game a bit more after a big focus on hosted exchange. But we still have it in our DNA. We have the experts internally. We know what we're doing. Honestly, if you look at our hosted exchange infrastructure, it will tell you that we can run massive scale infrastructure. We were hosting partner of the year. We're also a Microsoft Cloud OS partner, and we have more than 4,000 partners worldwide. One thing about our maintenance, because that's a big aspect, something that we get asked about, what kind of impact do your maintenance have? Well, we have monthly maintenance. They're regularly scheduled, and they shouldn't have any impact most of the time. What that means is that for regular patching of Windows, things like that, there is no impact to our client. We use an N+2 architecture, which basically means we have enough capacity for all of our clients, plus enough to do our maintenance, plus enough to have a hardware failure during our maintenance. What that means is that even if things go completely sideways, you should know about it. All the way through our infrastructure, it is redundant network, redundant fabric, redundant storage. The maintenance windows are still predetermined. We send you a notice even if we don't expect to have impact, so you can let your client know. We only do them off hours, which usually means on weekends, but late night. And what we target is 10-day notice. There's also our monitoring. So we use Veeam, PRTG, System Center Operation Managers. We have automatic alerts. We have escalation as well. We talked about it for most of this webinar, but everything I said about the migration, all the help that we can provide, that's free. I'm not trying to sell you anything. That's included in our offer. We're happy to work with you on a migration project. It is always the first step, and it is often sadly a forgotten step to projects. We have a lot of people originally at the beginning that would say, hey, I'm ready to set up that server to do QuickBooks and in the Performance Cloud. Let's go. And then basically it would go great until they went, okay, so now how do I start using that how do I move my client over? We've realized that we should always start, this is the first step. Let's figure out how we'll get your clients over, and then that will sort of dictate what we set up on the other hand. We can migrate anything, physical, already virtualized. We can do Hyper-V, VMware, you name it, we can do it. KVM, Xen, we're there for you. 24/7, 365 live technical support I covered, but let's mention it's by phone, email, or chat, no problem. Local support as well is an important thing. And we have a partner-first approach, which means one-on-one with our solution architects, pre-sale, post-sale. Even if you're not a partner yet, but you have an opportunity, we'll give you time with our solution architects. Launch assistance, meaning that when you're ready to get started, we'll help you get started. Scaling advice for the people that are on board but are looking for more help monitoring. And I go through this quickly because it's not usually interesting to our partners, but we also offer managed services. So if you have a client that just needs patching, antivirus, and some software installation and configuration support, or even if yourself are looking to get into cloud servers but are not sure that you have the capacity to support infrastructure, you can look at our managed services. Very cost-effective way to have servers that are basically no maintenance to you, and you can then focus on high-value items for your client. One thing that people ask a lot is, well, that's all fine and dandy. What do I use cloud server for? Like, what are the opportunities that are in front of me to get clients? Because let's be honest, that's what it's all about. It's either expanding your current business that you have with your existing clients or finding new clients. Some of the things you can do that you can use infrastructure as a service for to get new clients and expand your business is on-premise server replacement. I'd say that the most common thing. Capacity extension. Let's say they already have on-premise infrastructure, not looking to get rid of it. It's still good and everything, but they need more capacity, often temporary capacity. The cloud is a great opportunity for that. Hey, I need a couple of servers for a couple of months. That is my favorite sentence, I think, because and it's good for you as well as a partner. It means when people say that, it means they're in. It means they'll use it, they'll taste the performance, the ease of use, the flexibility, and they'll never go away. If you can get a temporary infrastructure contract from somebody, get it by all means. It means guaranteed business for the future. Terminal service remote desktop is a very common use case. A lot of line of business software demands it. For example, QuickBooks combined with remote desktop. Great experience on Performance Cloud. Hosting web services, especially for ISV, very common. Hosting databases. As a backup and recovery site, I mentioned Veeam. It's a subject for a whole other webinar, but absolutely if you have a need for backup and recovery, we can talk about Veeam, we can talk about other solutions. Performance Cloud is a great destination. And agile development and testing, like I mentioned, temporary workloads or to do tests and things like that. It's a great use case. If you want more detail about typical use cases, we have a document. It's linked here, and you can get access to this deck after the presentation, or you can just go in your partner toolbox. So let me pass it back to Alan, who's going to close this webinar.
So the next steps are pretty much about making sure that all our partners are properly enabled. Just as an add-on, I wanted to add a couple of things before we close our webinar here. Partners today are looking for a more efficient way to sort of add services and grow revenue within their existing business by SherWeb having specific niche value adds like our free migration services and the added managed services portion. This not only allows our partners to add billable revenue on an existing sort of opportunity, they can charge their customers for migration and make that extra revenue on that extra opportunity. And same with managed services. We do a managed service at a minimal cost for a customer. However, that could be part of your offering where you add on our managed services onto your overall holistic services and leverage our SherWeb expertise and our licensing here. And not only that, by focusing on Performance Cloud, it allows our partners to jump tiers, which says when you're selling Exchange mailboxes in Office 365 at a per seat usage, but when you start to sell servers, your bills are bigger to your customers, and that's allowing you to get a higher discount on an overall perspective with SherWeb.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alan. If any of our partners today that are on this webinar are currently Exchange clients of SherWeb, and I know we have a lot of those, that's one thing to consider. Easily, if you had a couple of servers to your bill, this could reduce the price that you pay for your Exchange mailboxes. Because our partner performance tier are combined. So we take everything that you sell to sort of not decide, but to see which partner performance tier that you're in and what kind of discount that you get, which means that if you're billing a couple hundreds of Exchange seat and you had a couple of servers, suddenly you can get an additional 5%, not only on your Performance Cloud servers, but on that existing Exchange business as well. And that's basically free money. I mean, it's 5% that you weren't getting and that you get directly in your pocket. So that's something to consider.
So just as a reminder, if you don't already know our main resource, our partner toolbox is more of a library for our partners where we have lots of material for your sales tools, for your sales division to sort of have white label material that you can go back to your customers. There is white papers on our products and services. There is battle cards. And basically videos, and just to give you a better idea. And every time you're stuck and you need a resource and if you can't get a hold of somebody, this should be your first step where you get into is our partner toolbox. If for some reason you do not have access to this, I implore you to reach out to your account manager and to make sure that you know where this has existed, because there's a lot of valuable material in here, not only for your understanding, but also to help you guys with your sales cycle. And then once again, we offer, as part of our enablement services, we do offer one-on-one training on an individual basis based on what your needs are, whether it's Performance Cloud or whether it's a database as a service. We can always find and schedule an appropriate resource within our organization. Make sure we'll be giving you that one-on-one attention till you make sure and you're comfortable to go out to market and represent SherWeb and represent your company all at once. And if you're already also an existing partner, you should know how awesome our Cumulus portal is. And I'm not being biased, but we've heard nothing but good things on how intuitive it is, how easy it is, and just basically our portal is very sort of manageable, a big bird's eye view for everybody to maintain from one portal. With that being said, I think those are the main three things, and with everything Guillaume said, that will be it for me. So let's move on to any Q&As. Is there any questions that anybody's itching to ask Guillaume?
So there's a couple of things that was asked that I'll address now.
Sure.
But the first thing is you mentioned Cumulus, which makes me think a lot of our partners may not be in Cumulus yet, if they're Exchange-only partners and everything. That's certainly one thing that you should talk about with your account rep. You cannot. Performance Cloud is sold through Cumulus, so we have solutions ready for you. Even if you don't want to migrate from account managers, we have solutions for you, and we'll get you into Cumulus selling Performance Cloud, no problem. But it's a good thing to approach with your account rep. So we got one question mostly that I want to address here is, can we do migration from our largest competitors, for example, Rackspace? Well, the three names that were in the question, I'll name them: Rackspace, Amazon Web Services, and Azure. And the answer is, and I've covered it a little bit, is definitely yes. Very common scenario. They want to come to us, service, performance. There's a bunch of reasons. We can do disk to VHD migrations. We can look at data-only migration, reset up. It's like the idea or the thing to retain from this presentation is you should really sit down with one of our experts and plan your migration that way. I think you'll like the experience. It'll be much different from what you had when you went to those service provider. But yes, absolutely. We've done it in the past. We have a lot of experience with all the providers that were named there. We'll be happy to talk to you about it and set up a plan, put some dates on it, and get going. I think that's all the questions we had. If there's any other, now's the time. Be great. All right. So thank you very much for being here. If anybody missed any part of this presentation, then you will get an email tomorrow saying how to get the recorded version. If you have any questions, please contact your partner rep. If you don't know who your partner rep is, or if you don't know how to contact them, simply email the email here, partner@sherweb.com. That will get you an answer very quick. So thank you very much, and have a nice day.